Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Bold Lawyers Show. I'm your host, JD Hoovener at Bold Patents Law Firm. I'm here with my co-host, Matt Colseth.
Well, hello there.
Hey, Matt. Oh, man, it's good to
Can
see
you
you.
hear me okay? My mustache isn't blocking my the sound.
No, it's actually kind of reverberating in a nice
Good.
way. Give me a little more of that, male and masculine,
Yeah, I'm going for that. That's me.
And I've got something going here too. And I'm
Yeah,
doing,
you do.
so we did last week on our Bold Inventor Show. We kicked off our Movember month. As you always do, you've been doing this longer than I have, but this is sort of just an increased awareness of men's health in general, specifically, getting screened for some of the nasty stuff, cancer, prostate cancer, and then mental health as well. Anything to quick note on that while we're talking facial hair?
Yeah, no. I think men's health is really important. I know a lot of us don't like going to the doctor, but getting screened is important, and men's health, cancer, suicide, all that sort of stuff.
For sure. Well, this show is for attorneys, not just male attorneys, of course, female attorneys. Gosh, why not even say those that are, what's the word? Binary or non-binary attorneys out there.
Yeah.
And we're talking to lawyers, right? That we're going to be interviewing. We got one backstage, a founder of their own law firm, and we're going to hear their stories. So that's coming up. Christopher Brown, excited to have him on in just a bit. This show is for you, the attorney, the one that's looking to maybe go out and try this on your own, or you've been at it and struggling. You're wondering what it's like, hearing other people's stories, how you might be able to level up your game as an attorney. And you and I, Matt, we bounce ideas off each other. It's awesome, and I think this is maybe still a thing in the law where I was like, oh, I'm nervous about asking my a competitor whether they would let me know how they're running their the business side of the law. But I'd like to break down any barriers there are, because that's a shame. I think we can all benefit from each other. We had to talk about how to help our respective.
Yeah, 100%. It's not like we're competing for the local the town legal
Right.
legal work, right? This is, we practice nationally, trademarks and patents, and
yes,
I really don't feel like I have any competitors, because there's just so much work. It just doesn't feel like there's any competition out there, right? My competition is me, right?
That's right. Now, hey, I mean, I will say we have competitors. I mean, it's like I feel like Steve Jobs, looking at Michael Dell, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna always have the big bad legal Zooms and your whatever rocket lawyer and invent help.
Yeah.
You bet. I'm going out. I'm gonna go find them, but our clients.
We talk a lot of smack about them.
So anyway, there is competition, and that's important. Part of what we're talking about here is the business of law. So I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna bring on our guest, Christopher Brown. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So good to have you. Where do you hail out of, good sir?
Let's see. My office is in Olympia, Washington.
Yep, that's right. Okay. A little west of the mountains. So we're all, you and I are both in Washington. Matt's out in Minnesota. I moved over to Eastern Washington a couple of years ago. So, but unfortunately, it's been raining cats and dogs, like I remember.
Right.
West. What's the weather doing out there?
It's actually kind of sunny. Actually, partly cloudy. So
right.
It is actually no rain today and no rain forecast for tomorrow. But then we got weeks of rain coming up. So yeah, just take it while we can get it. Break out the suntan lotion and while we can, and we'll go from there. Unfortunately, I got the pasty white guy complexion, so we're kind of battling against nature here, but we'll try.
Yeah. So. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on the show and being open to getting fired questions at by other attorneys. Sure. So for any of those out there listening who have one live viewer at the moment, feel free to ask questions for any one of us, of course, Christopher included. But let's kick things off with your founder story. I'll put the big video on you. Why don't you share kind of what got you into the law and what got you into wanting to start your own practice? Tell us about that.
Let's see. Well, I've been practicing for 23 years now, and some down in Oregon, and then some here. I mean, before I went out on my own in 2009, actually, worked for a couple firms. One down in Oregon, a small tax boutique firm, and then moved up here and pretty much the same thing, small tax boutique firm. I have an LLM in tax law, so I deal with complex estate planning, high-end wealth, business formations, business transactions.
You and I should talk then.
Yeah, well, let's see. And of course,
Matt,
you got
sorry, no.
you got and they got the occasional tax audits from the IRS. I get a lot of that. So and some international. I went to law school to do international business transactions. Unfortunately, when I came out of law school after I got my LLM, the economy was not doing what I thought it would be doing, and I had to take a different path. But luckily, I'm actually doing a lot of international work here. Even though I am in Olympia, I do have clients here that do have projects internationally, Australia, China, Korea, Canada, Belize, and some Europe. So I'm kind of getting back to the core. Although I still basically about a third of estate planning, business formations, transactions, and then the tax stuff.
Okay.
So I mean, before I went on my own in 2009, I was with firms again doing estate planning, complex business planning, and things like that. Unfortunately, I timed probably my exit probably wrong because I went out in the height of the Great Recession in July.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. I was like, 2009 would be like the worst time to open your own firm.
Right. Well, unfortunately, I mean, if we're located, I mean, although Olympia is the state capital of Washington, we're very, very agricultural based, farms, timber, things like that. And the clients that we have, they had at our firm are very asset rich but cash poor. So, I mean, they would basically, they have all this inherent wealth, but they couldn't spend it. So basically, and then some of the work dried up, for one. And then two, I was the quote unquote low man on the totem pole, so to speak. I was 8 years of experience, but I was doing all the drafting and things like that. I kind of got burned out on that. So, I mean, yes, despite my, better angels, I decided to go out on my own. Luckily, I actually had I had made some connections before I went out on my own. I made some connections with some other estate planning and other attorneys in the area.
Is that when that was in Oregon when you were there?
Actually, no, this is in Washington. I mean, okay. Actually in that was in Washington, and then but then when I stayed local because my family's here. And then, but luckily I made some connections with some attorneys, and they were able to refer to me a very, very lucrative case, involved a divorce, very, very contentious divorce. And after 3.5 years, they finally came to an agreement as far as how to divide their assets.
Come on.
And they decided to give them all to you.
No, the issue was, I mean, they made the division. Unfortunately, they had 15 limited partnerships, and of course, they don't want to be in partnership with your ex-spouse. So they came to me to see how can we split up this limited partnership.
Some people have babies. A lot of people have limited partnerships. I mean,
right. So limited partnerships. So we basically split them up tax free into single member LLCs. That's where I came into play. Unfortunately, that was I came under the misconception that people are going to come see me because of what I can do. So I don't need to worry about marketing. I don't need to go out and network or things like that. Unfortunately, that gravy train ended pretty quickly. So then I learned the hard way that basically you have to go out and actually put the footwork in to do these things. So I started a lot of networking, a lot of networking. Unfortunately, that took me out of the office.
Hold on, I want to hear about that, but I want to go back. I want to go back to that point where you're jumping, because I think that's where a lot of maybe where our listeners maybe they're on now, right, after the fact. So you said you were at a sort of call it a medium-sized firm for 8 years.
It's a small firm. I mean, three attorneys.
Okay, it's small. Okay, and so if you're willing to share a little more details as to why you left.
Again, I mean, I got tired of just doing the grunt work. I mean, I was not really encouraged to go out and do things on my own. I mean, or go out and develop my own clientele. I mean, that was for the rainmaker principle of the firm. And
years you were just grinding.
I mean, 6 years in Oregon and then moved up, and so 2.5 years in Washington. But still, it was, I mean, I was doing the drafting, which is great, but I mean, I was not really encouraged to go out and do more than that. I mean, and then I wasn't given the tools to actually help expand the firm and all that. So, and then of course the burnout happened, and of course, the money just wasn't coming in for the firm either. So there's kind of a mutual thing that we went kind of parted ways because, again, as I mentioned, there was the economy was tanking at the time. So
this is 08, 09, right?
Yeah, okay. Exactly.
How did you make those connections with those lawyers? You're saying, what were some of the big ways that you reached out? Made those connections.
Before I left, I mean, I was doing a lot. I mean, I was doing some networking. I mean, basically bar association functions. Basically some maybe ribbon cuttings, things like that. But again, just getting out of the community, doing some of that. But I mean, that's building connections. But that wasn't really developing a clientele. But luckily, I had made those connections, and so they were able to carry me at least at the first year of my independence, so to speak, of setting out on my firm. Unfortunately, again, I had to realize that the money just wasn't there to keep sustaining on that. So basically, I had to go out and actually do the work, do the networking, the footwork, networking, and all that. I dabbled in the internet, but the internet marketing was still so new that everybody said they're an expert, but nobody was. So it's basically, but through years of effort and trial and error, and hitting the right people, I built a solid referral base, networking base that I was getting clients and getting work that way. But it does take a lot of effort, does take a lot of time, does take a lot of patience. And then come 2018, I was presented with a opportunity to go on a trade mission to China with the Washington Commerce Department, as well as the Thurston County, which is Olympia, Economic Development Council, and we went on a trade mission to China in Shanghai, the first ever international import expo. And it was huge. And I went with a couple of clients. I presented this opportunity to my clients, and because they were thinking about doing some trade in China.
Yeah.
And I decided that if they're going to go, I'm going to go too. Why not? Be a great experience. Do kind of again go back into the international stuff that I wanted to do when I went to law school. So I took that opportunity, went to China, and at the same time, I was actually working with another attorney, kind of mentoring her. She's Chinese, but she just put out her own shingle. She's had plenty of years experience, but they were mostly government work. She got tired of government work, and she decided that she wanted to go out and do her own thing.
Yeah.
And she had some clients of Chinese, Chinese origin, and when I came back from China, and she came to me and say, I have these clients from China that need help, and so I thought about mentoring her, but I thought, well, this might be a great time to actually pivot into something that I really wanted to do, which was the international. And rather than just mentor, I decided, well, why not bring her in as a partner and we'll form our own firm, which is Northstar Law Group. And that was established on April 1st of 2019.
That's awesome.
Unfortunately,
no
April
Fool's joke.
Yeah. But unfortunately, the timing for that was not right either. One, trade war, that would just kicked off. So while we had some clients, because the idea was to help, Chinese expats, develop, set up their own businesses here.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that kind of dried up, and then COVID hit. So, yeah, the double whammy.
Right.
So, and then ultimately, my partner Ruth, she decided that she didn't want to do that. So, while she is still tied to our firm, she's of counsel, and I give her projects to work on. But she actually is working as a ALJ in Seattle right now. Just lifestyle choice that she wanted to make. But we still work together on various projects. But for the most part, it's me now. But but it's a great experience. And it taught me that how to start working with a partner and also employees. Because until that time, I really didn't have any employees. I was basically a one-man shop, and that is not a way to run a law firm. Basically, I was not running a business. I was running me, and basically just hoping for the best and going from there. But once I formed the firm, I hired employees. I had to put on my big boy pants and actually start running a law firm and doing all the things that a successful law firm does as a business.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they don't teach you how to run a business in law school. That's not their job. So it was kind of a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
And every day I'm discovering new things about what I could do to improve the business part of the firm. But since 2019, we've been going leaps and bounds. I have a staff of 4.
Okay.
Some remote, some here, and we get along great. So,
what were some of the best? What was your first hire? I'll say, aside from the partnership.
My first hire was actually a quote quote. I got a recent graduate from University of Washington. He's had an MBA. And I hired him as my paralegal because he was interested in going into the law field.
Uh-huh.
Ultimately, he was with me for a year. Great guy. But ultimately, he decided that yes, he wanted to be in law, but he wanted to be in law enforcement. He actually wanted to go in the FBI and do forensic accounting for the FBI.
Okay.
So,
wow.
That being said, he said, "Well, I'm leaving, but my sister's interested." So I hired his sister Alexandra, and she is now my office manager, executive assistant, and she's done a wonderful job. I could not be where I am without her. And then I hired my in-person hire Erin, and she's here, my secretary / social media manager. She's a great job with that. And then I hired Olympia, who is actually Alexander's sister, and she's my paralegal, and she does the drafting on all the business stuff. So it's been great, and I think one of the big things is hire the right people. Make sure that you get along. Of course, always maintain a good culture, open culture, transparent culture. Be honest with your staff, but but hire good people, because I found out the hard way that I cannot do this on my own.
Yeah.
So, and also the next thing is also get a good support system around you as well. Like I said, we didn't go to law school to learn business, so hire coaches. I have a business coach. He's a wonderful guy. He does a great job of me for keeping me in check, so that way I don't chase after the next shiny thing that's out there. Because we get in. I'm sure you know that we get inundated with various offers like, oh, this is how we can help your firm, or this is what we can do for you, type of thing, and they all look shiny and great and all that stuff too. And the temptation is to do all of it because you want to have that that system that's going to be the next best thing. Unfortunately, that doesn't necessarily work out.
Right.
So there's a lot of trial and error that way, and make sure you have good systems too. Because what I'm trying to do is trying to automate as much as I can. The clients basically input all their information into our system, and and then all our systems automate and fill out our forms, whether it be business formations or estate planning. So that way we don't have to input the information. The idea is to avoid human error. So that way, if there is an error, we could always say that, well, that's how you filled it out. And that's how it is. Now granted, of course we vet it, but it's always nice to have that, AI aspect of the firm to kind of catch those errors that shouldn't be made.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you got a very lean operation, sounds like. So tell me, you've got 3 sort of staff, including 1 paralegal. Tell me, why have you not pulled the trigger on an associate or someone else to do legal work?
I think the reason I haven't done that yet is because I'm trying to solidify our systems. I want to get to and that's right now we're going back through our policies and procedures, making sure that everything's buttoned up, so that way we're a lean, mean fighting machine.
Yeah.
So that way we're not fighting. If we bring on an associate, we already have a place for them. They're plug and play. We know, they know what the rules are. They know how to work the systems. I don't want to have to spend my time training them and doing the things that I need to do to bring them on. My goal is to bring on an associate next year.
Okay.
Not necessarily in the area that I'm in. I was thinking more along the lines of business litigation. I'm not a litigator. I hate going to court. The only time I go to court is when I open a probate, and I hate that. But because that is not my skill set. I want to hire somebody that's complementary to what I do. I'm mentoring a student at Gonzaga. He's interested in business litigation / securities law. Which is an interesting combination. I actually took securities law in law school. I was actually pretty good at it, but I decided not to go into that field because the liability is so high. I wanted to know what not to do, so I didn't get sued. So anyway, but just to hire somebody that's complementary, not necessarily what I do per se, but something that will fill in those gaps that I have in my firm. Excuse me.
Love it. Yeah. I can't think of any subject I was necessarily good at in law school.
Right.
Hey, I passed, right?
I was good at trademarks.
It's awesome.
Trademarks. Whole life is trademarks.
Okay, and you're in what year are you with? I know Northstar is relatively new, but
right.
On your own, if you will, how long have you been out?
See, I started in July of 2009, so that's basically 14 years.
See,
14 years.
Here, folks, there it is. 14th year, and you're still working on your systems and your process. This is a work in progress, right? This takes a while.
It never ends. It could always be tightened up.
Yes, I love to hear that.
I always feel like there's every law firm has evolutions, right, of growth and change, right? It sounds like you're kind of in that period where you're, mastering the systems, getting everything in place so that, you're laying the groundwork for future growth.
Right, and to be honest, my idea is not necessarily to grow so much. It's just be enough to be comfortable, because I do have a family. wife, 3 kids, and I want to be able to enjoy my time with them as well. So if I try to grow too much, then basically I'm putting too much strain on that aspect of it. I mean, we have the quality of life element. We're all human beings. We're not here for our jobs. As much as I like to say the Northstar is mine, and it is, but I mean, I have a life outside of this as well. So I mean, it used to be early on in my career, I wanted to take on the world. I wanted to expand. I want to have 5 offices. Seattle, Shanghai. Actually, I used to have an office in Shanghai for a year.
Yeah.
But I realized that, really it comes down to quality of life. So as long as I'm comfortable enough to basically, take care of everybody, go on vacations, basically retire comfortably, then that's all I need. I don't necessarily need to take over the world to become the next Lane Powell or Stoll Reeves. Those are the big firms in Seattle. I don't necessarily need to have that for fulfillment. So.
Love that. Love that. You make it your own. That's what it's all about. And let's take a moment on trademarks. I mean, so Northstar. Your name's not Northstar. No one's named North, right? So or Star for that matter. How did you come up with that name, and how has that guided you?
Well, and that's the thing, the guidance part. And the reason we came up with that is, again, we want to have something that basically we're trying to guide you to the right outcome in your case. Yeah. But we also wanted to find a name that actually translated well into Chinese and in Japanese. I love
that.
Because, I used to be fluent in Japanese. I lived in Japan for 3.5 years.
Right.
So, I mean, and again, with the international side, I wanted something that would translate fairly easy. Mm-hmm. And with all of that. And before I formed Northstar, is basically Christopher T.L. Brown, Attorney Law PLC.
Right.
And that was me. I mean, unfortunately, there was that point where my identity was tied so much to the firm that's all I live for. And luckily, I mean, once I formed Northstar, I was able to kind of detach a little bit, have that separation. Again, I mean, I'm very, very proud of my firm and what we've accomplished, but it's not the end all be all of being a lawyer. So there is,
It also makes it easier for you to sell the practice down the road when it's time to retire.
Yes, eventually. Yes, and that's, and ultimately I do want to build a saleable firm. So and once we develop the systems and get the infrastructure in there, then we'll have a actual viable asset to sell, as opposed to just me. I don't plan on freezing cryogening my brain and being something on like Futurama, and living forever in a jar. But
love that. Well, I'm going to get you off to your next meeting here in about a few minutes here, but some things I wrote down: business coach, right?
Yes.
Being humble, getting advice yourself. Loved that. And still working on processes in year 14, 15. I also wrote down a big goal of yours is getting an associate next year. That's wonderful. And you're taking your time. Last thing on that. So what are you doing to prepare? You mentioned systems and processes, but as you go into actually putting an ad out or interviewing, what kind of an attorney do you want? What are you looking for?
I want somebody that's relatively fresh out of law school.
Younger.
Right. Younger. I mean, somebody that I could kind of train in how I operate. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I get my staff as well. Somebody that's relatively new to the area of law. I think a lot of the things that we could train, they don't necessarily have to have a background in that. And especially because, every employer is different. My way of managing is different than somebody else's. And I want to make sure that there's a good fit. And as far as, working with my staff, we have a good line of communication. I don't want to have somebody that has some sort of old ideas embedded in prior history. Right. And I'm fighting against that. I mean, I want to be able to kind of
unlearn or unteach.
Unlearn, exactly. And I don't want to have that stress of trying to fight through that history. So that's why, that's why somebody younger, somebody that's willing to learn. Because what we do is the tax law is very, very technical. And somebody that's willing to learn how to actually read the tax code, apply it. And then, in various situations, and again, in complex estate planning and, business formations and transactions and things like that. So.
Yep. Got it. Yeah. I think that's a very good approach. We had tried, I don't want to take too much time here, but we had tried the whole, intern, brand new associate. Mm-hmm. And we over time, we kind of learned, we're not, well suited to do the training. The on the job stuff is a real, right. It is a full, and in a way, it definitely takes away from time you can build, time you can, actually be profitable. So we're kind of in the mindset now, just to be candid, hey, we're looking for those that are 2 or 3 years out that have kind of base knowledge that we can then go from. But
right. But then again, going back to my point, that's why I'm trying to get the systems in place so that way I don't have to spend time fighting or working with that, and then onboarding a new associate. I'd be able to kind of devote my full attention to that. So that way it's an easy transition for this new person to come in. I mean, not a whole lot of training, and or have my back office staff, especially my assistant Alex, kind of handle that part of the onboarding. I mean, and then I just kind of go into the technical aspects of actually doing the law.
Love it. All right, Christopher. Well, if anyone's listening here or maybe after the fact, are you okay if we give out your email address if they have questions for you? They want to follow up?
Sure. Yeah. My email address is Chris, CHRIS.
Yep.
At N as in Nancy, S as in Sam, law, G as in Gary, R as in Richard, P as in Paul.com.
There it is. And any final words of wisdom, things to share with our audience here as we wrap up?
I think probably the biggest thing is be patient. These things do not develop overnight. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. I mean, there's a lot of time out there that you need to spend doing it. Be humble and always be willing to ask for help. I mean, we're not an island, so get good people around you and you'll succeed. Thank you so much, Christopher. Appreciate your time, man. We'll be in touch. And all right, Pat, thanks always for Bold Patents. Myself, we'll see you guys next week on the Bold Lawyers Show. Have a good day.